Our lives are laid out on a road of bumps, turns, struggles, and more. How do we respond? How do we endure adversity for learning and growth? I'm Aubrey Johnson, and we'll explore these questions and more on The Road to Rediscovery. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Road to Rediscovery. I'm your host, Aubrey Johnson. The Road to Rediscovery is about reflecting on life lessons to learn and grow from them, and of course, pay it forward and uplift others who are struggling through dark times. Now, as you know, you can get this show anywhere you listen to your podcasts. If you happen to listen on Apple Podcasts, we invite you to leave a rate and review. Otherwise, we still invite your feedback. Please send us an email at roadtorediscoverypodcast@gmail.com. That's roadtorediscoverypodcast@gmail.com, and we'll give you a shout out in a future episode. And as always, your listenership is very, very important to us. And so we are so grateful for your listenership. All right, my special guest reached a crossroads in her journey at 35 that involved a whirlwind of emotions from confusion to joy to frustration. And no longer inspired by the success of her field, she reached a frightening realization. And with this, she was fueled to make a big change, but it wasn't easy. She created FIGGI Beauty and helping others who are in similar situations. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to hear all about it. Let's welcome Jeanne Retief to the show. Hello, Jeanne. Welcome to the show. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here, and I hope I do it justice.
Oh no, absolutely. We are thrilled to have you here. So, can we first talk about your journey and what were some of the elements that kind of led to I don't know, maybe a feeling a bit disenchanted, wondering where the next move or next step was, before Figgy, that inspired you to springboard to Figgy.
Yeah, sure. So, um, I have a long history with anxiety and struggling with anxiety, but I
Okay.
always just kind of cracked that up to being um, prone to stress because
Hmm.
I was also always told you're a very sensitive person. You've always been super sensitive. You've
Right,
always been
right,
so stressed. So I
right.
always just thought it was that. And Um, I had some trauma that I needed to deal with from my childhood, and
Hmm.
I cracked it up to that as well.
Hmm.
But then in 2015, I got really ill and I
Mm,
was diagnosed with panic disorder, um, which kind of set all of these wheels in motion. It was a couple of years since the diagnosis that I actually started Figgy, but um, my actual expertise is in international humanitarian and criminal law, and
yeah.
I was running my own consultancy at that point.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's not the kind of environment where it's okay to have that kind of issue.
Right, right. Yeah.
So I hid it, and I had a lot of shame and guilt about that.
Mm,
And basically, that and the severe denial and mismanagement of the diagnosis led to an all-out breaking in 2020, and then I had to make some difficult choices.
I see. And so I mean that's extraordinary. I mean, you felt the need to suppress it at one time. Um, was it just because
Yeah,
things like that weren't talked about, or
I think, in the professional environment, first of
right?
all, when I started the consultancy,
Hmm.
um, it wasn't an easy thing to do. I always knew I wanted to go into human rights. I always knew that was the space I wanted to be in. When all my friends were kind of applying to the, like we call them, the big five law firms,
Yeah.
my only goal was to get into legal aid and hoping that they have enough funding to have another candidate attorney for that. It was always what I was working towards.
I see.
And when I was struggling in getting to that point in my career, I decided to just do it myself. And many people, especially in my environment, thought that was really silly. It would never work.
Hmm.
So I was going up against a lot to build this consultancy. And in that professional space, it's really like you're kind of on the bus or off the bus. Like,
Yeah,
can
yeah,
you or can you not handle the pressure? Can you be here or can
right.
you not be? Like, can you deal with this in your personal time or can't you? So
Yeah.
there was that. And also, a big part of my job and a big part of what I did in my consultancy was mentoring and coaching and aid. And I felt like such a fraud.
Oh,
Because
really?
how can I be trying to help and inspire others if I'm dealing with an anxiety issue? That
That
just
you're
didn't
that you're suppressing and holding. Yeah, I see.
make sense. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I just told my husband, no one can know. Anything can be
Hmm.
wrong with me except
Yeah.
the fact that I have anxiety. And also, that was from my own point of misinformation and
Hmm.
ill education on this mental illness, because
Hmm.
I, like many others, thought that this immediately puts me into a box of I can't handle stress.
I
I'm
see.
really bad at stressful situations, which it
Right.
is definitely not. But yeah, that definitely perpetuated the problem.
Amazing, amazing. And isn't it amazing how the body can give us these signs, right? I mean, even if we suppress these types of feelings over time, whether we know it or not, that it's happening, it is happening, right? The feelings and the shame and guilt kind of compounds on itself over time until your body reaches a breaking point. And it sounds
Mhm.
like you've reached that point to where you've had to make some big decisions, some hard decisions. And you know what? When it came to that pivotal moment in your life, in your journey, Gene, um, I can't help but think that there was a great deal of self-awareness that had to play a role in in you reaching that point and understanding that you had to make some big changes. Can you share with us the role that self-awareness played in that pivotal moment?
Yeah, I mean, if I look back at it now and you say it like that, I can
Mhm,
definitely see obviously there needed to be a role of self awareness. But
mhm,
in that moment, when I kind of the straw that broke the camel's back and that led to that, felt
mhm,
like the worst thing I could go through in my life, because
mm,
it was this culmination of things like
mhm,
everything I had just explained with hiding it.
mhm,
We just immigrated to a new country three
mhm,
weeks before COVID lockdown. My consultancy did not translate to the EU as my husband's business did.
mhm,
So I lost my identity, I lost my sense of self, everything I felt I was worth, and everything I felt defined me. And then this diagnosis that I wasn't dealing with. And like you were saying, my body was constantly talking to me, but the real problem was my mind, because it was
mm.
all of these things that I was always suppressing, not thinking
Yeah,
about it, just surviving, just going forward.
right.
And I think my self awareness came in that moment of this is not working.
I see.
This is a really horrible situation.
Mhm.
Do you want this to be the rest of your life? Is this what you want to be like
Right,
for the rest
right.
of your life? And that was a tough reality
Oh, I bet it
to,
was.
yeah, deal with.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, it had to have been. I mean, and thank you for, so vividly explaining that and where you were at that time and what happened, as part of losing, your identity and who you are from the immigration. And I mean, because all of that compounds on top
Mhm.
of, um, what you were diagnosed with but not dealing with. And I just think that that really paints a picture for the listeners in terms of how 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 extreme the circumstances were, to where you've reached that point. So now let's talk about the um, uh, the inspiration, right? I'm sure part of that journey and what the difficulties that you went through, as a springboard or an inspiration for coming up with Figgy. But what were some of the things that you were going through to to kind of to kind of make or help make Figgy take shape and come to form? Like, were you thinking, I want to create a space uh that gives people the help that I was looking for when I was going through? I mean, what were some of those things going through your mind in terms of creating something like Figgy at that time?
Yeah, I don't really think, eventually it did come to the point that I wanted to create this community, and it was,
Hmm.
born from this idea and one of the frustrations I had with my previous career in terms of I was able to help, but I was never able to make a practical difference because I was always barred by the politics and the diplomacy and the red tape
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
all of these organizations giving the money and taking the money. And
Hmm.
I know how to do this, but I'm being blocked by this. And if I can take that out of the way and just do it the way that I know it works,
Right.
it can have such a much better impact. So it was a little bit of that, but that was only eventually. The first step was really much more selfish, and
Hmm.
it was really more, how do I get out of this? Like, how do I purge all of this hurt and poison that's like festering inside? I need to have an outlet for it. I don't know how and I don't know where. I've done therapy. I've been
Yeah.
to so many therapists. I mean, my trauma stems from childhood sexual abuse and sexual
Mm,
assault,
mm,
narcissistic abuse,
mhm.
physical. So I had a very complicated upbringing.
Oh,
And,
wow.
like, how do I've done therapy, I've done all these things. So what's my next step? Because obviously this wasn't working, and there is a degree of me having to be able to um, deal with it a little bit better.
Mhm, mhm,
And that's really how Figgy was born, in the sense of I need to share this with someone. I need to kind of get it out. And the first part of Figgy was really the blog, because
mhm,
I
mhm,
felt such cathartic kind of freedom. I've always loved writing. It was my favorite part of being a lawyer, was writing. And I found this outlet where I could share and say these things that were
mhm,
causing me so much pain.
mm,
And that led to the podcast, where,
mhm.
as you know, if it's not a video podcast, it's really just you and the four walls and a microphone. So it doesn't feel
Right.
so intrusive and so
Yes.
like, um, and then, I just started realizing I'm not alone, and there are many other women that feel this way, and this could really
Sure.
be something, and it could really help somebody. So that's really how the kind of wheels started turning.
I got you. I got you. So fast forward to today, Figgy seems to be this tremendous community. And like you said, started with the blog. It was a creative, well, more than a creative, a therapeutic outlet for you in what you were dealing with in writing. And you had the control, right? At that time you had the control. You can write what you want, express how you felt, express how you feel, and not go through bureaucracy or red tape or anything like that, with what you express. And then of course it becomes a podcast. And explain if you can, for the listeners, what are some of the things that Figgy offers, uh, people, um, when struggling with some of their inner demons. What are some of those things that Figgy offers people, in a sense of community?
So the main points are really Figgy Life and Figgy
Hmm.
Beauty, both
Hmm.
completely stemmed from my panic disorder diagnosis and trying to take ownership of that. But I think what makes Figgy special is really more what it does not offer.
Okay.
And a huge challenge to my starting my healing journey was this plethora of self-help advice out there. And every time I had a relapse, I would be so down and demotivated because I would think I was the problem. I wasn't positive enough. I didn't have my mindset correct. I didn't meditate enough. I didn't do this
Mm.
enough. And
Mhm.
then you read this book and it tells you to do A, and you read the other book and it says A is such a bad idea, do B. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Figgy is really, and I say that very clearly, I offer no advice because I have no advice. I'm also just struggling to get through it. So it's
Mhm.
really just more a community of let's go, well, let's all go through this together. Let's all have a place where it's okay not to be okay and not to have the answers, and to
Yes.
still be seeking and to still be wondering, and to not be kind of judged for that, because sometimes we all just need to have a place where we can go and say, you know what, life sucks at the moment, and I
Yeah.
just want to be able to vent and purge these emotions from my soul so I can move to the next point of my being.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a fascinating approach, and I think it sounds very authentic as well, Gene. An authentic approach. It really puts everyone at the same level in your community. As you said, sure, you're the creator of Figgy, but you don't have all the answers, and you are going through it just like everyone else in the community. Let's figure this out together. Let's go through this together. And so that right there, not only is it authentic, but it is reassuring to a lot of people in the community, I would imagine, who now know that they are not alone. And so I just think I think that's a tremendous demonstration of humility in saying, I don't have all the answers, but let's go through it together. Let's figure this out together. We all have problems in one form or another, and we'll make it through, you know, together. Strength in numbers, right?
Yeah, that's so true. And
Hmm.
I'm very open to it, and I absolutely love it when the community responds with their advice to me and tips that I can try and things that I
Yes,
can do. It's
yes,
really more of a sharing of experiences than it is an educating of how to do it.
yes, yes. No, for sure. And I see that, and organically, I would think some solutions kind of come to form or are revealed in these in this dialogue, in these conversations, within the community on any given topic. Someone, like you said, may suggest to you, hey, try this, blah blah blah. Don't know if it works for everyone, but it worked for me. And or you may make a suggestion to someone, hey, you're going through this. Well, when I had this, I blah blah blah, and you
Hmm.
try that and so forth. So I think yeah, I think there are definitely some opportunities where solutions for some people,
Yeah.
big or small, they're all wins, um, comes through just out of the spirit of dialogue.
Yeah, and the other thing about this is combating that loneliness, because it
Yeah,
can very quickly start to feel like you're in this deep dark hole by yourself. And sometimes just reading about somebody else's experience, even if there is no advice and you don't want to say anything back or offer anything, just like in that moment being able to read and say, oh, thank goodness I'm not alone. Somebody out there understands me. Somebody's going through
yes,
this and somebody's
yes,
feeling what I feel.
yes.
Um, and that's very very important to me, and we're launching an app soon to help with mental wellness and this community. And a very part of that for me is, what do you need, like, everybody is different and everybody's challenges are different, and we're all going on different paths that don't look
Yeah,
the same. So just because something worked for me doesn't mean it's going to help you. So
right.
what do you need?
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
what do you require? And let's work on that.
That's great. No, no, that's great. And that type of dialogue is it's tailor made, right? It's custom. It's
Yeah.
it's not a cookie cutter, one size fit all, one solution for everyone, because the reality is that isn't the case when it comes to
Yeah.
these things, right? Yeah. So um, I want to talk about. Um, I'm trying to figure out the most appropriate way to articulate this. Um, when it comes to beauty and skincare and things like that, right? I'm not saying anyone needs that to to uplift themselves, but I truly believe that there's a sense of empowerment when um, when you tend to the details of like skincare and and just different types of beauty treatments and so forth. There's a sense of empowerment and esteem that that people can have that to help them through things like oh, I don't know, like low self-esteem, imposter syndrome, and that sort of thing. Um, so can we talk about Figgy skincare and the
Hmm.
skincare line? I would think that that also helps in the empowerment of of women
Yeah.
who may be feeling a certain way, maybe going through some shame or guilt, and that can be part of that holistic um, self care, so to
Approach.
speak,
Yeah.
right?
It most definitely can,
Hmm.
and I think it is a very unique sensory experience. But the reason why I created Figgy Beauty and what it really is about is, um, like I explained in the beginning, I was at a point where I had no option. I had to take ownership of my diagnosis. I couldn't move
Yeah,
forward if I was going to continue hiding it. And a
yeah,
big symptom of my panic disorder is very sensitive skin because your cortisol levels are always so high, and it really affects your skin, burning,
right.
itching, breakouts,
Yeah.
reacting to all sorts of things. It's your largest organ, so it's really not great when it's uncomfortable. And
Hmm. Hmm.
I wanted to launch a skincare product that looks specifically at dry and sensitive skin, and I was very open about this. Skincare was launched as a symptom to my panic disorder,
Hmm.
like kind of standing on the podium, taking ownership of that,
Hmm.
giving this small thing that can help you feel a little bit better. Because the second part of that was something I really struggled with my diagnosis, was when all of these kind of lifestyle changes were thrown at me. Oh, meditate, that's going to make you feel better. Or you
Yeah.
need to spend an hour a day exercising. But when you're in that level of panic and anxiety, it is impossible for you to commit to even 2 minutes of meditation.
Right.
You have
Right.
to start so small. And if you
Hmm.
don't, you get so demotivated, and it's such a lonely and confusing place to be.
Mm.
And this routine, yes, it makes your skin feel amazing if it's sensitive, but it's also something small and short you can commit to. It's like a minute or two a day of self-care. It's
Hmm.
nothing you have to feel bad about if you didn't do it. Like just trying to put those small steps back into your life that can lead to bigger steps and more things that you can do for yourself to be in a healthier space.
Got it. Got it. So, like as it would apply to your journey,
Yes.
as an entrepreneur and the type of environment in which you work in, I'm sure it's high pressured, but you have to find ways to manage through your panic disorder. And it sounds
Yeah.
like, taking baby steps, small increments, is the key, because I guess with a panic disorder, and I don't know because I've never experienced one, um, the ability to focus seems very difficult, at least for any period of time.
Yeah, because I think when people hear the thing panic disorder, they think it's somebody that has panic attacks. Well, that is true, and you do have panic attacks. It's more the symptoms of that manifest in your life every single day. It's the
Yes.
sensitive skin, it's the gut
Hmm.
issues, it's the
Hmm.
blinding migraines, it's the
Yes.
thousands of trips to the emergency room. It's
Yes.
what do I'm not I don't have the word except for the word in my 5-year-old's book, a puppy mind, where
Yeah.
your mind is always going like 1,000 miles a minute, and you
Yeah.
forget stuff, and you get easily confused and disorientated. So, keeping your world in focus is like every day I get up, I have to start again.
Right, right. And I think every day we have to make a commitment to ourselves, right? It's not like a commitment to say, once a major change happens, you say, okay, from now on, I'm going to be this, this, and this. I'm going to do this, this, and this. Um, it's waking up that morning and saying, today I commit to, and then
Yeah.
the next day doing the same thing. Today I commit to, and you make that
Yes.
commitment to yourself every day. Those are more realistic goals than someone saying, from the rest of my life, I am going to eat right, exercise an hour a day, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it helps you with routine, because routine is
Hmm.
so crucial in keeping your anxiety, well, for me, keeping my
Hmm.
anxiety levels at a good pace and place. And
Yes.
those small things that don't take that much time that still form part of your routine are so helpful to me.
Yeah.
Whether it's having a glass of water when I wake up in the morning, and that's the first thing I do is drink a glass of water, and then I do
Right.
this, and then I do this.
Yeah.
Or having this skincare that you do for a minute every evening before you take a bath, like those
Right.
little increments of, okay, this is what happens this time of day, this is what happens this time of day, it
Yeah.
really helps me.
Hmm. Hmm. That's tremendous, and I can see that helping. I can see that those practices helping you, the routine helping you. I'm a very routine oriented person myself, and I had to learn routine even in a much bigger way with the pandemic when I started working from home instead of going into my office. And for me at that time, I've never worked from home, so I couldn't separate the 2. It was very hard, and there were times where I would just, sleep as late as I can before I had to roll out of the bed and roll down the hallway to my office and start up the computer. And I did that for about 2 or 3 months, and then I thought, "Hey, wait a minute, Aubrey, this isn't you're not in the right mindset. This isn't, you can't kinda push the envelope like that. It's not the right mindset when you start your work day. Now that you're
Yeah.
working at home, you need to establish routine. You know, um, get up, work out, take a shower, meditate, whatever those things. Read. And so that gave me a huge lesson in routine, but in a different dynamic, right?
Yeah.
Routine in a combined work life in one physical place, my home. And so, with that, Gene, I wanted to
Mm.
ask you, do you believe in a work life balance? That has been tossed around for so many times. As catchphrases, I guess. Um, the work life balance. I mean, is it a fallacy? Is it some illusion we have, or is it something truly intangible that we make tangible by having things like routine? What are your thoughts on work life balance?
I honestly don't think it exists. It doesn't work
Okay.
for me. It
Hmm.
made my anxiety a lot worse.
I see.
I seem to think of it more, I don't know if this is the right word, but more of a symbiosis.
Okay.
Like, life happens, there's always going to be times. I think this is this conversation comes a lot for women as well, that want to have a career and kids and a marriage, and I'm always going to have times where I have more stress and more hours I need to put in the office. I'm always going to
Yes.
have times when
Yes.
I'm less busy and I have more time with my little girl. And
Yes.
I'm going to have times when I'm more tired or more energetic. So
That's
for
right.
me, I try to focus on where the ebb and flow of my life is at that moment. And I
Uh huh. Uh
do
huh.
my best to be my best in that space, knowing that it's going to change again some time, and then I would need to have to be in a different space. But trying to like get up every day and, okay, I need to be a mom, I need to be a cook, I need to be an organizer, I need to be great at my job, I need to balance this, I need an hour for this and half an hour for this. It's like it, like just thinking about it makes me anxious. Like
Just think
I
about it,
just
right?
can't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Um, so, and I agree with you. I guess there really isn't such a thing as work-life balance, and the thing is, work is part of our life, right? We only
Hmm.
have one life, and so I don't know, maybe we balance facets of our lives, but
Yeah.
but it's not work and life because work is part of your life. I, uh, I don't know. I'm just trying to
I
visualize it in
think
my head.
maybe it's more of a, maybe I see it more like like a, a body balance, like a wholeness, you
Okay.
know. I
Yeah.
think whatever is happening in your life and in work, those are all outside things. They do influence you, but I mean, if your body feels strange, like if your muscles are hurting or you feel mentally exhausted or
Yeah.
emotionally in a bad place, like those are all signs that something is per se out of balance.
Right.
So then you can perhaps investigate, or that's what I try to do, and see where you can make corrections. But
Hmm.
that's not going to say that you're all of a sudden going to solve this massive problem you
No.
have right now, and you're
No,
not
it's
going to
not.
have to put in the 12-hour days. It's just
Yes.
going to be another way of managing that. So
Right.
I try to go back to that.
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. And it is managing and navigating through, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, that's whether it's work or life, or
Yeah.
or or I don't know, children or sports
Yeah.
or hobbies, or I don't know if you're part of a city committee or city council or something.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yes, just managing through. I'm in total agreement. So, Jean, how can the listeners connect with you, learn more about your great work, and just just maybe even reach out to you for any questions on the work you do?
Thank you so much. I You can find me at Figgy, FIGGI, FiggyLife.com, where you'll find
Hmm.
the blog, the podcast, and you can reach out to me there.
Hmm.
Or you can go to FiggyBeauty.com, where you can find all the skincare.
Fantastic. I'm going to make sure and have all of those links in the episode show notes so the listeners can be clicking on those links as they are listening to this wonderful conversation. Jean, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for your openness and transparency in what you struggled with that was or became the springboard after a lot of struggling to FIGGI, a community, an entity that is really helping people and not just helping people overcome their struggles, but helping people feel a part of a community where they're not alone, in their struggles, and they feel a sense of assurance in going through this together. So I want to commend you for that work, and thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, no, absolutely. And I want to send a big thank you to all of you for tuning in and listening. And as always, we want all our listeners to know that when dealing with life's struggles, you're never alone and there's always hope. Please share this show with someone you know who needs inspiration and support. We're all on this journey of life together, everyone. And it sure feels good having you on the road with me. Thanks again for listening, and we'll chat again soon. We really hope you enjoyed this episode of The Road to Rediscovery. We'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email at roadtorediscoverypodcast@gmail.com and leave us any questions or comments you may have.